They said the world would end in 2036.
The old Umbrella made mistakes.
The T-virus.
Discover the origin of evil.
I'm afraid, Claire. I'm afraid of what they're gonna do to this town.
I have the future. What do you have?
I have a pen.
You heard it up top. We're having a dangerous night ahead of us because we are about to enter Raccoon City, head towards Umbrella, maybe catch the C virus, deal with some zombies, and try to get the hell out of this podcast too on the way because we're talking Resident Evil. Your hosts, the C virus, Colin.
Oh, nice. I'll just be Mike Redfield. You know, there's probably a version of that guy. His face changes enough throughout the series that I could be Chris Redfield too. Who knows?
You said it moments before we hit record, but this is a series where you kind of know everybody's names and there are 1,000 names, so it is very helpful.
Yeah, exactly. We're spoiled for choice almost that we're just doing this kind of a tag team episode, you know. So, you know, maybe we'll do more Resident Evil in the future. Yeah, just us. There's
maybe
more coming down the pipeline. That's a tease for later, though.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It was a very popular episode we've done in the past. Normies, go back and check that out, where we've kind of, you know, talked about our different interests in Resident Evil. But there's some new stuff going on now, and you and I are kind of the only ones who kind of get down with this series. I would say you a lot more than me, but I'm very excited to talk about it. How about you?
Yeah, I'm excited. Anytime something Resident Evil comes out, I'm excited. I know what the general discourse has been kind of about what we're going to cover, but I like to think that I know at least I have a different take than I think 99% of the internet does. And then, you know, we did a whole episode talking about our history with the games. You know, I grew up with these. I don't have a ton of love for the Paul W.S. Anderson movies, but, you know, if you're in a relationship with Resident Evil and you put it on Facebook, it has to be, it's complicated because no matter what your favorite thing is, there's something in the franchise that's completely bonkers that you hate. So it's like, you know, there's a balancing act with it. So I'm excited to explore that.
And I would even say, like, just so akin to what you just said, but, like, the idea that even, like, now those Paul W.S. Anderson movies are so tainted with, like, all those on-set deaths and stuff that it's just, like, it's very, very hard to like certain parts of this franchise. But there is also a lot to love because it's kind of a complex, multifaceted video game, movie, anime, hybrid world.
It's got an interesting set of genetics, we'll say.
Love it.
Yeah, and some create rogue mutations that, for better or for worse, we're kind of stuck with. So, yeah, we're going to be talking Resident Evil. I don't know if there's anything else we want to set up. I guess maybe pitch the main two things, but we're going to be all over a little bit because there's some news for Resident Evil, right? But we're looking at the Netflix Resident Evil show, and then the Welcome to Raccoon City film that, you know, was produced by Sony recently as well.
And I feel like when we're wrapping up, we'll kind of talk about where the video games are headed. Obviously, there's been a ton of news and stuff there. But, yeah, you're right. For now, let's head into the city, Mike. Come on, Normies. Go to Raccoon City.
2.0.
We're back. I should have said welcome to South Raccoon City. South African Raccoon City. I don't know how to say that without it sounding terrible, I guess.
Right.
Like you said, 2.0, we're talking about the newly released Resident Evil Netflix live-action series.
Yeah, what a thing this is. So I think a lot of the online discourse has been very negative. You know, there's a famous scene of one of the villains dancing to Dua Lipa. That's like been going around like this is what they put in this show.
Well, yeah.
I want to say out the gate, first of all, probably light spoilers for something most people are not going to watch, or if you did, you maybe hate watched it. But I kind of really like it. So,
wow.
Where do you coming at just out of the gate? Because I was hesitant to watch it. It looked bad. Grew on me.
Exactly the same with you. Where literally, you know, I had gone to Comic-Con recently, as I said in another episode. We would sort of end our night together, me and my brother at our hotel, going like, well, let's just like put something dumb on. We can either like play a game to or like fall asleep to. And it was like, well, we got to watch this new Resident Evil series.
Yeah.
Like, come on. And I said to you, it's dumb. It's super watchable. And I stand by that. And I hadn't finished it when we had talked. Obviously, now we've both finished
Yeah.
it. You have not given me any of your opinions, so I'm super happy to hear that you liked it, or
Yeah, that's right.
kind of liked it.
No, there's a lot to talk about here, not just to shit on it. Like, obviously, it's very different. If you saw the trailers, you know that this is very different from the games, but, you know, so were Paul W.S. Anderson's movies. So, like, there's nothing to talk about there, right? We've already had Resident Evils that are way off base. So, what is there? And, yeah, there's interesting ways that I think it, in some ways, is kind of the most Resident Evil live-action thing that's ever been made.
Oh my God.
I'll elaborate on that more as we go. But you mentioned to me you hadn't watched the finale. You were saving it. When I got to the last episode, you know, penultimate episode, I'm like, I don't know how he didn't just roll into the next episode with those cliffhangers.
Yes. Well, but I should say I didn't watch the one prior to it too, so I hadn't seen any of and we're again going full spoilers. The clones.
Yes.
If I had seen this, Mike, yes, nothing would have stopped me from moving forward.
That changes everything. So I guess really quick, let's try to put a genre or a tone on this thing, because people are like, oh, I want this spooky Resident Evil TV show to be gritty, but really, well, I'm looking at this thing, and I think you can maybe elaborate more, but this is like, what if the CW made a Resident Evil show?
Okay.
Right?
Okay, Mike.
But also gory.
We are so on the same page, it's sick on this thing.
Oh, no.
Here's the hot take I was bringing to this episode.
Okay.
Now, one of our lead characters' name is Billy. You know, kind of like a very famous singer that happens to be very popular right now, Billie Eilish, right?
Doesn't no resemblance in her fashion or hairstyle. Yeah, no.
Or green, or I guess blonde
baggy fit
hair.
Yep.
Yes. Ooh, you know, she's
not Billie
so
Eilish.
prone to drama.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the audience for this show, it is not us. It is called Resident Evil. That's cool. It's cool that there is a show called Resident Evil. This is what you used to call a Tumblr show, like Supernatural or something else on the CW. What I would now, I guess, call a TikTok show, right?
Yeah. That kind of like teen, you know, like 13 to 25, you know, young adult-ish kind of.
Yes.
And
now you're saying like something CW, something Riverdale-y. Here's my other take on it. It's them going, we're Netflix. We made Stranger Things. Just make Resident Evil kind of like Stranger Things. Just have it be about like young kids who are kind of like going through a mystery. And you're like, oh, I guess, sure.
Right. So that kind of brings me to almost like point one of what makes this a very Resident Evil thing, right? And, you know, it opens and they're just like living in the suburbs, right? A little bit of Umbrella, this and that. But like they kind of... especially the teenage stuff, it's like a slowly unraveling mystery, right? And so the first game, it's like, our team is missing. What happened to them? Why are these dogs crazy? We're locked in a mansion. Then you slowly figure out, oh, there's something more sinister at this mansion, and there's experiments, and you know. So the show is,
instead of doing, you know, moving the statues, Mike, to solve puzzles, it's like, you know, do the piano. Watch out for the camera.
Yeah, but that
you're so right.
That puzzle sequence is like, it's the most natural, like, dumb puzzles in the real world, because you know, like they comment in Resident Evil 3, like, who designed the locks of this place or whatever, like, why are there puzzles in this police station, right? In Resident Evil 2 remake. So it's like, yeah, this feels the most natural
moon emblem. Yeah,
because like Wesker, you know, their dad has like a secret lab in the basement that he would want to hide, and I was like, this is the most Resident Evil puzzle solving that's been in any live action thing.
That's wild. What a wild take.
Yeah, it's a teenage plot, but it's like the most accurate, like weird, obtuse puzzle that why is it here? And that's like a very Resident Evil weird thing. So, you know.
And sometimes it's a little too teeny boppery for me. Sometimes it's a little too sister drama. But when it's not, and when it is that exciting part, I think it works. And you said kind of another issue I have with it, but something that I'll highlight. You said story one. You know, the first game, the game of the girls. Let's talk about the second game, Mike, then. It's an action-adventure post-apocalyptic game that takes place in the future.
Yeah. We are bouncing between their childhood and then their adulthood. And it's kind of the critical moment is essentially when the outbreak starts. And that's when they kind of go their separate ways as sisters. And then in the future, they're kind of on different sides of this conflict, I guess. They're kind of estranged. So they're kind of close, but you see the fractures of their relationship starting, the splintering, and then the outbreak is kind of the culminating moment there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the only reason I want to say kind of to all of that is that it's maybe a little too thin, and that's why they feel like they need this chopped up storyline. But I wish we could play game 1 and then game 2. I really liked the flashbacks enough to let's stick with all that. Let's see where this ends up. I think that's better storytelling. I don't understand why this is diced.
Yeah, there's been some people who were, more constructive with the criticism I saw on YouTube, and they were like, yeah, just have a show where everything seems normal and you don't even know it's Umbrella Corporation, and then that's the big twist. And like the fact that Wesker is so different in this, it's like you're kind of, they could trick you, right? So like to have this slow burn and then this reveal and then we go to the future, like that's a cool way to structure the show too.
Yes.
And I would have been fine with that. But I guess the need for zombie action for the core fans are like, we have to bounce back and forth. This is never going to fly past an episode or two. And most people didn't even get beyond that, unfortunately.
Yeah. You're saying this bigger twist of the sisters. I just wish, I think it would just be such better writing of, you've got the twist for the fans of the games, which is halfway through this series, it's set in South Africa. They're saying New Raccoon City. This guy's name is Albert Wesker. That's all kind of not adding up to you. But halfway through, they're like, everything you know about Resident Evil, that happened already. This is the future. That's awesome for people who like the video game. That's a great twist. And then the rest of it can just be for the casual viewers who are like the sister stuff. Let that all come later. That she's alive after whatever kind of half ending you're kind of gonna do for the first game or first storyline, right? And just, I don't know, just let it play out more naturally.
Yeah, but this is probably, and most definitely 100% the writers referencing the zap system from Resident Evil 2, where you could zap between the storylines of Claire Redfield and Leon Kennedy at will, and they would just do that with time. It's clearly a reference, Colin. It's made with love that way. Yeah.
We're going to talk about those two specifically having their own adventure in that kind of game style.
Not to get too far ahead of that, but I feel like after I finished this and started the Resident Evil, I was like, could this be the OG Raccoon events from the Netflix show? Like, are they weird double feature? Because they're both kind of in this new universe.
That would be cool.
And they both have Lisa Trevor, so it's like...
They both have that one moment where you're kind of like, oh my God, Lisa Trevor is involved in this, but not really for the TV show, but kind of.
But, they do a little bit of fan service, and there's some decent fan service in this, too. Like, you have to look deep for it, but it's there, and I'll highlight it when it comes up. But even Lisa Trevor, that's from the Resident Evil 1 remake on the GameCube. She wasn't even in the original game. So it's like...
Had no idea.
She's already a retcon that fans have embraced. So the series it's always been kind of weird. And just...
Sure.
Like, have you ever seen the original opening cutscene where it's like... introducing everybody and it's these awkward American actors in Japan and it looks like
no, I don't think so. That's
amazing. It is one of the campiest, most wild things. So when people get pissed off that it's not scary enough or that it is campy, I'm like, look at the very first game again and then we can talk. Yeah,
it's goofy.
It's very goofy. You're almost a Jill sandwich. That's for the next movie, but that's a recorded line. I'm the master of unlocking. That's a recorded line in the original games. Okay, so
we'll get there.
So it can be weird, but I think this does, like halfway through, right? That's when we're starting to get into the meat of the story. I think specifically the moment where it clicked for me was the prison escape, where they're with that weird cult guy.
Sure.
And then we have Baxter, which has to be a reference to the Turtles.
My family. Yes. Oh, sure.
Right.
I don't know about that.
Dog, we go from 0 to 100 over the top, and we have this kind of cult leader that's Resident Evil 4-ish. You get like a chainsaw guy, that's like a Resident Evil 4 thing. But then Baxter just going ham in this like long take. He's like the goofy umbrella dude, but he's got the Red 9, which is, one of the guns from Resident Evil 4, and he's like, they're doing the chainsaw stuff. It's like, yo, this is like so campy. And it's like, if you've not seen Resident Evil 6, or 5, the ending of 5, some of the cutscenes are so fucking ridiculous. It's like, well, this is just embracing another thing that is also Resident Evil, because Resident Evil is many things. And I would say that this show is also Resident Evil, despite most people who want to hate on it. Resident Evil has been just as weird as this. Play Code Veronica. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Jade missions in the future.
Jade, that's right. Billy and Jade. Yeah.
Billy and Jade. Jade, well, we know because, of course, she's going to have the same haircut since she's a child, Mike, that, braid on the side of her head.
Yeah.
Her adventures basically against the Zeros and these insane hybrid blown up insects, animals, whatever that she comes down to, are the worst part of the show because of budgetary reasons. I would say it is much more interesting when they are in the cult-like scenarios or whenever they're in these like tight, dark spaces flooded with zombies. Because in my opinion, that's just a lot more exciting thematically and, just gives you more to play with. I don't need the worst eye lines I've ever seen of trying to look at a giant alligator, as it's like she's like looking up at the sky and then it's revealed that the alligator is like a mile away still.
Right.
Just like so brutal. Let me say this. Do you think this will get another season just with what the reactions have been to it?
Fuck no.
It's
I would watch it.
The lowest rated Netflix thing of all time now. Netflix
lowest
original.
Rated Netflix original.
The lowest rated. Yeah.
That's probably a little bit of review bombing. I've been seeing the same kind of headlines you'll see for Star Wars, like, oh, Netflix goes woke and forcing the female like family. It's like, shut the fuck up. One, have you played Resident Evil? Do you know Jill Valentine? Do you know Claire Redfield? Fuck off, right?
Absolutely.
Ada Wong, Resident Evil has always had strong female characters, so fuck off.
Ada Wong, someone who crosses over in both these things we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
The
only other one being Lisa. Yeah, we had two crossovers. I guess a weird Wesker.
The two fan favorite characters. Well, and Wesker. A Wesker. Yeah,
a Wesker type, which, shout out Umbrella Academy. He got two. Well, not for that. That's Sony. Anyway. People probably review bombing because people have bad takes. And this might not be the Resident Evil thing that you wanted, but I still argue it is certainly a Resident Evil thing and has a lot more of that DNA than most people are willing to give it credit for. You alluded to the clones, the Wesker stuff. That's like some of the most Resident Evil thing ever. The reveal that the head of Umbrella is just being mind controlled genetically by Billy. That's the most Resident Evil thing ever.
That dance scene, it was. I almost turned it off when it was happening.
I know people hate it. But maybe minus the dancing, but the idea that the villain was just being mind controlled, like that's such a Resident Evil like last act twist. Yeah, it's perfect. It's kind of goofy, but it's like that's Resident Evil, man. They get weird, so I don't know. This
is a show that gets weird. I loved all that Wesker stuff. I would say, the forced wokeness, quote unquote. Okay, what? This show stars two girls. Who gives a shit? Shut the fuck up. When it was their story of them at high school saying like, our dad's a scientist who made us. We're like these, separate twins with different moms and stuff, but we're twins because we were born on the same day. I was like, make a show about this. That's the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my life. That's great.
There were times when I was like enjoying kind of the teen storylines more than the adult storylines. And I'm like,
when Jade gets her little boyfriend, I was like, this is great. I actually like this a lot.
There's a little bit of tension. Yeah. And then it's like, we don't have passports or birth certificates. We should look for them. Like that stuff is all intriguing to me. Like they're unraveling the mystery, and their dad, who seems like such a nice, wholesome guy, but then there's the scene where he talks to the school bully or the girl that Billy punched in the face or whatever. She's getting in trouble, and he's like, "What do you do at Umbrella? 1,000 people could do your job. You know how many people do my job? One. So shut up." And I'm like, damn.
When he has to torture that guy, it's amazing. I'm realizing now, Mike, you're making me think that it has such an interest in quote unquote legacy as well, this show and the family drama. Netflix is also looking at Cobra Kai. I guarantee it, going like, Stranger Things, Cobra Kai, these are the things that kind of work for us. Resident Evil, that's a property that could fit in for that. And again, it's just interesting to look at it and go, well, I guess what if it could? Make a young adult version of everything. I don't give a shit. Like, everybody should be able to experience every fandom they want to. Go crazy. If this gets new people into Resident Evil, fucking cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, and like there's precedent for this too. I mean, Sherry Birkin was like, you know, a young teen or just a preteen going through the events of Resident Evil 2, and when she grew up, she ends up becoming like a freedom fighter, much like Jade against Umbrella in Resident Evil 6. She's like, you know, in her 20s at that point, and she's
amazing.
Embroiled in this conflict because she experienced it as a teenager, right? Even Rebecca, one of the S.T.A.R's members, she was like 18. She was the medic, you know, in the original games in Resident Evil 0. So like there's precedent for having a teenager, you know, experience something and then still be embroiled in Umbrella years on, right? So that's very Resident Evil.
What is the last one you played, Mike? Did you fuck around with Village?
Yeah, I love Village. I think
played
Village
through
is
Village.
great. And that's another one that's bonkers and all over the place. And I've speedrun Village. I love it.
You love the speedrun Village. The other new one out is the 2 remake or remaster. You've played that one as well.
Yeah, and honestly, my favorite one is the 3 remake, which tonally is a little bit more of a cheesy action movie. The 2 remake is more horror. 3 remake is like a cheesier action movie. They did cut some parts out that people complained about, like a major clock tower area, and there's like a park where you fight a giant worm. They really wanted that worm. I was okay to miss it.
Out. That's terrible.
They did, unfortunately, which they didn't do for the 2 remake. I think they were trying to rush it. So, but I love that one because tonally, to me, that's what Resident Evil should be. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It's a little bit scary. There's some good one-liners, right? And this has elements of that. Like, I love when the clones are talking. Oh, yeah, there was that one mean Wesker, but he died in a volcano. Nobody really liked him. And that's what happens in Resident Evil 6 when Chris punches a boulder. He literally punches a boulder into a volcano, and then Wesker dies in there. So they're like...
That's right, he's got the big arm.
Yeah, they're mentioning, like, Wesker being like, oh, yeah, he died in a volcano. It was fucking wild. And it's like, that is wild, and that's Resident Evil.
It's all canon.
Yeah, it's all good, man. It's all good to me. There's a little Napoleon complex guy who rides around a giant robot in Resident Evil 4. Get out of here. It's a weird series. Sorry that this wasn't a direct one-to-one copy of Resident Evil 1 or 2.
Well, I ask you because I have not played a new one in a while. Now, obviously, the 4 remake or remasters coming out, people are going nuts for that. That was kind of what a lot of people would consider the pinnacle or the jumping on point. Maybe even if it's not like the truest, quote-unquote, Resident Evil style, it's definitely like the popular flavor, right?
It's considered like, by a lot of people, one of the best games of all time. Like up there with Super Mario 64, Legend of Zelda. Resident Evil 4 is really hailed as one of the best games ever, not just Resident Evil. It doesn't have tank controls, which I think is the traditional survivor horror, but it's still an incredible game. And that after that, they started ramping up the action, and then things got into volcanoes, you know, because they just didn't know how to hit the brakes, and it just became more and more action, less and less scary.
More quick time events.
Yeah, and then trying to tie in the convoluted lore of who's related to who and who genetically did what to what. It's like it gets wild.
Ouroboros.
Yeah. Oh no, the plagas and all this stuff. So
Las Plagas.
Yeah, I was watching this with your recommendation. I'm just like writing in my notes. You know, I kind of fucking love this show. Like, why do I like it?
Kind of interesting.
I think I kind of went in with no expectations.
When Billy gets bit, I was shocked. That was kind of the point where I was like, you know what? I think I will be watching the rest of this.
Yeah, and that's like, we've never seen, there's been a million generic zombie movies and shows. Even The Walking Dead, I don't think explored like the idea of what it's like to be transforming into a zombie, like as in depth as the show did, you know? Like I
kind of becoming a diabetic. Yeah,
and then the dog's starting to hate you, and like, you know, she has rage issues and stuff. It's like okay, and then, you know, there's a lot of stuff like with them being clones, or you know, they were born so that Wesker could have a cure for his blood disease.
Yeah.
And so they're essentially, even the lady says, you're blood bags and shit, you know, like real condescending. But he does have love for his daughters. He also consequently needs their blood to survive. But like,
yes,
you know, so there's some interesting layers with this version of Wesker that I like. Not to mention his brothers. Hey, bro.
Yeah.
You know, Bert, yeah, old Bert.
I
you
would
know?
love a sci-fi clone story that doesn't have the accelerated aging, like blah blah blah. We're going to die because of this plot point, though. I'm always like, of course. Yep,
It's a little
there we
Metal
are.
Gear. Yeah, Fox die will
Sure,
kill you real quick.
Yeah, it's not even the only video game that does it. That's
No,
great.
no. I'm trying to see what the most important other notes I was looking at here, besides like, they tease the tyrant. We get a giant crocodile.
Yes.
Like, that's bonkers. Like, the
Yeah.
fact that they're like, hey, I know you guys got a lot of guns, but secretly we've been towing a giant crocodile behind our
They
boat.
go for it. Again,
Yeah.
I didn't think it looked great, but they do go for it, and I do appreciate that. So
Yeah, and what 7 movies have still not given me are a live-action tyrant, which is all that I want. And we only see him in a back-to tank. That would be a season 2 tease if we ever get one. We probably won't.
We probably will not.
Cowboy Bebop's not coming back. This will not, which is kind of a bummer because I thought it was interesting. But let me quote Wesker. Let me quote Wesker from this show to explain what this show is. Okay,
Please.
so this is for everybody that is a Resident Evil fan that is hating on this show or review bombing it or acting like it's not a true Resident Evil thing. Let me quote Wesker from this show. You'll probably hate that too, but here we go. So think about this in the spirit of adapting a Resident Evil property, right? Well, maybe it's a messed up kind of love, but well, they kind of all are when you think about it. So I think the creators of this did love Resident Evil, you guys. And every type of love, even, let's say, obsessive love, to where you will review bomb or complain about the littlest thing instead of taking it at face value. Yeah, it's a messed up kind of love, but so are they all. So, love the thing the way you do. Don't hurt anybody in that effort, right? But, like,
Yeah.
he's talking about the whole cloning thing. It's like, my dad didn't love us. He's like, he kind of did. He did love you.
Yeah.
It was a little bit weird, but, hey, man, so all fucking life's weird, dude. This is Resident Evil, Get over it. It's
And
still
Lance
like,
Reddick, we're saying amazing, never bad in anything. The concierge in the John Wick movies, I think if Jacob was here, he'd point out that he's in like, some amazing TV show that I've never seen before,
I
probably.
think he had a bit part in like Godzilla or one of those movies.
Maybe
too,
The Wire, I think. I don't know.
But I wrote down in my notes that after the clone shover, this is a Lance Reddick machine.
Yes, that's all it needs to
And
be.
he's great
right?
in it. He's actually, especially when you get the clones and he has these different personalities. We have Blade Wesker, which is like the original with the sunglasses and the trench coat. It's like, that's classic Wesker. And he looks great. He really pulls it off with all these different personalities of the Wesker clones. And I thought that, he seemed like he was having a good time. And I like this different version of Wesker. It didn't hurt me none.
Yeah, he's good with the daughter actresses. I think they had a lot of chemistry together. I hope, I hope the review bombing is a bunch of older losers, and I hope the actual audience of who I think this is aimed for, teenagers, maybe even teenage girls, amazingly enough, watch this and are like, yo, Resident Evil is the coolest thing ever, and they TikTok about it. So do it.
Yeah, and I guess my final thoughts on that kind of aspect of it, like I said earlier, like Resident Evil has always had like strong female characters, right? It's had like trans characters, non-binary characters. The genetics are getting crazy, like it's always been pretty fucking inclusive. So to act like all of a sudden this is being put into your Resident Evil, you're insane or you're blind.
Shut
right?
up.
Yeah, so get out of here, and hopefully we'll get some girls or not, people who wouldn't traditionally get into Resident Evil get into it. And I wrote at the end, like, it's wild because, like, the sister steals, Billy steals Jade's daughter.
Right.
And it's like, well, that's it. It's on site now.
Shoots her in the gut.
Yeah. But I liked that they do finally say, like, I'm excited to see Jade go get revenge, but we probably won't. But I do like when they're like, oh, shit, that crocodile really went crazy. And it's like, I had no choice. They're like, yeah. You had to. You had no choice but to release a giant crocodile upon the world. That's Resident Evil for you. I had no choice.
It didn't end with a whimper, dude. If this comes back, we will do another episode about it. Yeah. And I'll be excited. I'll be like, yo, Mike, our show's back.
The two of us. Yeah, they'll make it for just us.
It is canceled immediately after a 4-episode, season 2 wrap up. And we'll be like, great.
Cool.
I don't care.
Get the
We got
tyrant.
it.
But yeah, I think the highlight for me of the show was the young actors and Lance Reddick. I think they did a great job. That's the most fun to me. And I think the adult actresses did slightly worse than, I don't know, there's something about the sisterhood bond. She's a little too evil. Billy's a little too evil as an adult, but that's also a very Resident Evil thing.
Yeah. She
So it
should
could be on
not
purpose.
play it like we weren't seeing that from a million miles away. And also, we should have gotten a full episode with her with the helmet on as a character interacting with her. So when it does come off, it's a big reveal. Something 30 seconds at the end of an episode. I don't give a shit that the sister's back. It's like, of course she is. I knew that from the beginning.
Well, they cut to black like, oh, wait till next week, and then immediately it's like, yeah, 'cause I'm watching them back to back. Yeah, but
how are you, Jade?
yeah, I think if you can look at this,
Billy, you're
yeah.
alive.
Billie Eilish, thank God. Yeah,
I love all your music.
and Dua Lipa. We love your music too. They used it
Dance,
twice.
Mike.
Yeah, well, they used it at the skateboard party. Yeah.
Let's take a jump right now because we're going to answer the question of should Resident Evil be a TV series or a movie when we talk Welcome to Raccoon City when we come back.
Yeah, what happened in OG Raccoon City?
We're back. We're talking Resident Evil here on Normies Like Us.
Back in the 90s.
Back in the 90s style.
Yeah.
That was the title of song or title sang. Now, Mike, you watched this movie for the first time. I saw this film in theaters. And keep recommending it to people. It's impossible to find, unfortunately, because it's a Screen Gems film. It's only on like streaming services like Stars, which just makes it like worthless to recommend to somebody.
I had to use my Stars 7-day free trial to watch this and immediately canceled it after I finished the movie.
Amazing.
Because it's 7 days and they're going to charge you. I'm like, I got to get the fuck out of here. And it's through Amazon, so they already got my credit card. Like, it was seamless to just say add it on. I'm like, now I got to be sure. So we shut that down after, but I did watch this. And it's also really weird, which is great.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. Now, I feel like the big struggle that Resident Evil fans, and maybe you as a super fan have, is that people are like, well, how much of a one-to-one adaptation should these things be?
Yeah, because obviously this is kind of taking Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2, putting them together and trying to tell two stories at the same time. For me, and I think a lot of fans, right, there is a Resident Evil out there that is, let's say, a TV show even, which I think it would work. Like, if Netflix had done this, I'm fine with the show they made. But this would have appealed to regular fans, because even Capcom has made those CG movies. I was buying them on Blu-ray in like 2008. Degeneration, now they're on Netflix. Infinite Darkness is the newest set. And they're pretty mediocre too, but they're dealing with Leon and Ada and Claire and all the fan-favorite characters.
You're getting your core canon stories through
It's just kind of mid. Yeah, but that's still not spectacular. So it's not live action, but it's a continuation of those characters' adventures, right? But I think what people want is to go back to Raccoon City, go back to the mansion, see those original locations actualized, but maybe just do a whole season of stars in the mansion. And then season 2, Leon and Claire and them escaping. That's
obviously big picture. If you get the series, you're really dumping the money into it. Again, the series we just talked about, there were a lot of episodes set fully in their apartment and house where you don't see a lot of stuff happen. You have to assume budgetary restraints, COVID, whatever. Blah,
These
blah,
brand new, like, high rises that are not open for rental yet. We can film there cheap.
We don't need to film with extras. No.
Nope.
Now this movie, Mike.
Yeah.
I
does
watched
a lot of that.
Well, I watched the Resident Evil 2. I watched 2 hours of a Uplay on YouTube of somebody just going through it. And to open on the trucker eating something, he's going along. He happens to pass a sign, Mike, that says, "Welcome to Raccoon City." I mean, it's weird. This is a weird movie. We're going to talk about what's weird about it. But also, if you're a fan of Resident Evil, aren't you kind of going like, well, it's called Welcome to Raccoon City. Like, it's only made for me, a super fan of Resident Evil, right?
Yeah. And they do take some liberties with the characters and stuff. And we'll get
They are
into
very
that.
different.
They're very different.
We will talk about that. Leon, we will talk about Leon.
Yes.
But outside of all that,
Everything that.
visually, aesthetically, the stuff that's going on, what you said about mashing the first and second game together, there is a weird care of, I feel like I've only got 2 hours to get Resident Evil in there, so I better give all the Resident Evil I can in that 2 hours.
Yeah, I just wish Sony would have been like, we'll do 2 low-budget movies. One will be the first part, and then the second part, because Jill is in the mansion, and then Jill is also escaping in Resident Evil 3, and that's happening parallel to the Leon
She kind of
stuff.
goes in a tunnel for a lot of this movie instead.
Yeah, right, she does. Jill's pretty much non-existent in this, and she's pivotal in both time frames. Even though Resident Evil 2 is Leon and Claire, she is existing in the city simultaneously. Like, she's doing her own thing to escape. So you could do that. Anyway, that's not what they did. So they are cramming it in here. But one of the strengths of this is seeing those things brought to life. The Raccoon City itself feels right. Like the police station is like dead on. It's got a big stupid statue for no reason. The two flanks, the Arklay mansion is the Spencer mansion in the Arklay Mountains looks great. The entryway, the spooky hallways. It's like the best version of that I've ever gotten on film. So the settings and the orphanage and all that, it's like, yeah, I've never seen the iconic locations brought to life, and they finally fucking did it. And that's the strength of this. Not the characters, but the world is more or less correct.
Ends on a speeding monorail, and a character pulls out a rocket launcher. That is one of those things where you're like, yes, of course, that's what Resident Evil is.
Well, and they did that ending in the first Resident Evil movie with Paul W.S. Anderson, which was one of the only accurate things that Resident Evil, related in it, Not only, they had a decent mansion, but this mansion's much better. It was generic spooky mansion. This was the Spencer mansion that we've all come to know.
And just because you just brought it up, let me do a compare and contrast real quick. Having the character of Alice, is Alice an original character to those Paul W.S. Anderson movies? Okay.
They took the Ada Wong dress for her. Yep.
Of course. Now that I see it in my mind, she is exactly wearing that outfit. Oh my God, how did I never realize that? That character, to sort of weave in this weird first story, and I like that first movie. Again, issues.
Yeah, it's the most watchable of them to me.
I would agree with that. The second one's the most fun, but not very good.
Yeah.
And then from there, the crazy ramp of entertainment.
Just might as well put on Monster Hunter at that point. Like, fuck.
Monster Hunter, Mike. Next time I get to, in another life where I get to program a movie theater, I want to have a showing of all the Resident Evil movies and call one of them Resident Evil 4, but really I show Monster Hunter during that one and see if anybody notices.
We just redub the word monster with biomutant.
T-virus.
Yeah.
Biomutant.
They already have it recorded,
Those Paul W. Anderson movies, that first Resident Evil movie, is very much about someone on the inside experiencing an outbreak and an infection and a zombie outbreak of, I'm kind of a part of it is the twist. How can we deal with this? The real horror, and I would say the horror of the second game and the first game as well, is kind of what is the horror in a lot of actual zombie media, which is, or even The Stand or something. Where it's like, no, I'm a nobody, and how do I deal with the entire world stopping around me? Like, this is absolutely insane that the apocalypse has come to me, regular Joe, Yeah. And I think that's the strength of Raccoon City, is that, starts out with Claire looking for her brother, and the night gets crazy, and she never kind of stops telling you that this is crazy. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, you're right, this is crazy, and I think it's crazy too, and I'm having fun because of that.
Yeah, I feel like the tone of this is kind of going almost like it wants to be a 70s kind of grindhouse movie almost, right? And it could be excellent as that. It doesn't maybe quite nail it, but I love that idea.
It could be so close. Johannes Roberts, he has said what his influences are, and we should shout him out. I believe a Swedish director, but he did both of those 47 meters down shark movies that I have never seen before. So, good for him.
Yeah.
And he said, this is my John Carpenter movie. This is Assault on Precinct 13 meets The Fog. And I'm like, that's the coolest pitch of all time. That's what you should do. And when it is a team of people in a police station fighting off a horde of zombies, this movie is a 10 out of 10. And then there's kind of other stuff around it that I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, like let's get back to that, please.
Right. Like obviously we'll do a bit on the characters, but there are 10 out of 10 moments in this.
Yes, I like that.
Yes, but there's also some 2 out of 10 moments. I was thinking
I
about
would say a 10 out of 10 moment is the Jill sandwich part. There are moments where like
Yeah.
even small things where I'm like 10 out of 10. That's great.
But then they almost like who knows how to unpick a lock? Who knows how to pick a lock like that, right? And what I needed was a moment where they're together. He knows that she can pick locks, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you do it? You're the master of unlocking." And then that's another reference, right? Like,
Yes,
almost.
it's so good.
We do get Lisa, Trevor, Moonlit Sonata, but tonally, I was thinking about what is the first game, like actually the first game, right? And the first game, tonally, it's a lot like Predator meets Night of the Living Dead, because you have this elite form, the Alpha team. The Bravo team goes missing. The Alpha Stars team has to go investigate. They're the biggest, most badasses, right? And then they're just fucked. Right? And all of a sudden, the most badass people in town are helpless against this crazy threat, right? Like, that's like Predator. All these muscle dudes cannot do shit. Neither can stars, right?
It's amazing.
So that's very Predator, where Resident Evil 2 is more of like an assault on Precinct 13 or something like that.
Yes.
Escape from New York as well. Like, it's those two things together, with Resident Evil 3 kind of sandwiched on the side of it. Yeah.
I love that. What can I ask you just a trivia question? What was Silent Hill first, or did Resident Evil come first?
Resident Evil was first. It was kind of a remake of a concept called Sweet Home that had a spooky mansion, and obviously inspired by George Romero. But it was first Resident Evil, then Silent Hill.
But I don't think, our listeners, I don't think you understand the idea of the first like 3D digital horror games that basically older brothers would pass around to other older brothers at school, and younger kids would be like, what do you mean you're playing Resident Evil? That sounds so scary.
Yeah, I didn't even get like my hands on them until 3. Like, I was so scared. I'd seen 1 and 2 played through, but 3 was the first one I actually beat.
God.
Which is why I probably like 3 Remake, just because like that's mine, right? But yeah, they were terrifying back then, and the tank controls and the limited resources, like the survival horror genre as a thing. I kind of think of it as an isometric top-down perspective. You never have enough ammo. You never have enough healing. And you're constantly making the decision between, do I shoot or do I run? And which is going to be more prudent? Do I run past these 3 guys and save the bullets for a big monster? Or do I shoot these guys now and hope I can kill the big monster?
Yeah.
Constantly a trade-off,
But I'll go even more to the binary of it, Mike. I'll just say to our super young listeners, Call of Duty, Halo, all that stuff, they were not video games that starred human beings that were like in like action sequences that like seemed incredibly realistic at the time. So where you were just like, this is the most cutting edge graphics I've ever seen in my life. It's so scary.
Yeah. And it's scary because you kind of move slow. Like, there's a little bit of design intentionality to make the tension there. But just visually, like, it was working. You had the cutscenes with the truck crashing into the police station. And there's a big rocket launcher end thing in the first game. And seeing the tyrant is, like, nuts, I
hope I would give anything for this movie to have done well, Mike, so that you could get maybe your 3-esque follow-up. But let's dive into this one more. Let's talk about the characters.
Yeah.
To me, there's only one, because there's only one good character in this movie, and it is the captain played by Donal Logue. He is the only actor who knows what movie he's in, Mike. All the other young stars and starlets
don't know what they're making.
Think this is going to be a huge Marvel-esque breakout and don't realize, like, no, you're making the dumbest movie that's ever existed.
Yeah, Chief Irons, he knows exactly what he's doing.
He's so good, Mike.
Yeah, he's incredible. And so let's just say this movie is taking place in an alternate universe where these characters all have different backgrounds. They have the same names, but these are not the same characters from the games.
Combined, shell gamed. Yeah, a lot of them are just, it's like your siblings, and this is what happened to you guys.
You grew up in the
Like,
orphanage.
really? Yeah.
But yeah, like Chief Irons in the game, number 2, he's like a crazy asshole who's like torturing people in a secret chamber of the police station that he has built.
No idea.
He's in on it. He's in on the shit with Umbrella. He's covering up,
know.
But on this, he's just like, the shit is going on, He's so much more fun here, but he's like a sinister villain in the game. So they're shifting, and like Leon's the cool guy, but here he's like a fucking loser.
Leon's like the sleepy stoner, Mike. And
Yeah.
the whole time I'm like, hey, don't take shit from these fucking losers, Leon. Fucking yell at
Because
him.
Leon's like canonically like the coolest guy. Everybody loves Leon in the games. He's so fucking cool. Save the President's Daughter, number 4. But in this, he's such a nerd. He reminds me more of Carlos from Resident Evil 3 Remake.
Yes.
Even his look, he's got like the 5 o'clock shadow, curly, darker hair. Leon's a little more blonde generally. So it's an alternate universe version. But I like that in this universe, they're like, what if Leon, everybody's favorite, was a fucking loser? And it's like, that is so wild that they even decided to do it. I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm on board. Irons is crazy now.
Where do you think the version Johannes Roberts played in the Netherlands or something just had like a different dub, and he was like, Leon's the loser. Everybody knows Leon's the loser.
Yeah, the European voice acting was just way worse. Yeah, he wasn't the cool guy.
And then Sony's like, hey, if this is the script you're turning in, I guess this makes sense. And all the fans are like, what?
Right, and like even Jill, it's like, obviously we're doing a little bit different casting and stuff. And it's like, that's all good to me. But what I was frustrated with is, where's the outfit? Where's the Beretta or the beret?
Man,
where's the beret? I want the beret. That's all.
You get like half the armor with like a lot of shoulder pads and gloves and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no.
I need the beret.
We got to go the whole S.T.A.R's outfit here.
Yeah, and they don't really explain who S.T.A.R is and stuff. So some of the costuming could have been more accurate. I know Leon does get the RPD bulletproof vest at one point, which is funny that Claire's like, you wear this because you're probably going to die. And Claire was good. She had the red leather jacket. Her looks fine.
Kaya Scodelario from Skins, just absolute tour de force. Not a huge actress, has not gone on to do a lot of breakout stuff, but every time she pops up, I'm excited. But let's jump to, because from the same show, we just had a scientist Wesker. Now, you brought him up, Mike.
Yeah.
Umbrella Academy.
2 umbrellas.
Toby Hopper? Is that that's the Chainsaw Massacre. What, Tom Hopper? What is this guy's
Tom
name?
Hopper, I believe. Let me look it up.
Yeah. Tom Hopper, aka
Tom
number
Hopper.
1, Luther.
Yes.
As a frat bro, Albert Wesker? What are we thinking here?
Yeah, he's like pranking Leon because he's the rookie and all this crap. Yeah, he's like a frat bro, which, again, he's like secretly in on it in the game. He's like, you go investigate over there while I fucking do some nefarious. Like
he has a different mission in this, but he's not in on it.
No, he's not in on it. He's like leveraged to, but it's not like he's part of it. He's not Lance Reddick in a leather jacket like he should have been. Like that's classic top. Wesker with the sunglasses. Oh, they do explain why he has to wear sunglasses all the time in the post cred, but
in the post cred.
I don't think either of these things are getting sequels.
Dark. I can't see that scene. I pitched to my brother. He was like, "Is Raccoon City good?" I was like, "This scene is at the end where he puts these glasses on." He was like, "All right, I'll watch it."
It's like
yes.
It's like your character has permanent dark vision, so in bright light you can't see, so he has to wear the shades
Reddick.
to counteract it.
It's Vin Diesel.
Reddick.
You gotta do the Riddick.
That's right. So this is a bizarre one, but it's Butcher Bay, nice. And that was his fee for Tokyo Drift. Give me the Riddick franchise. But yeah, I unfortunately I don't think this or the show is getting a sequel. Because we get Ada Wong in here just in the post creds.
Yes, and I would argue, Mike, the big takeaway from both of them for the fans and for reviewers was, well, of course this doesn't deserve a sequel. These are dumb. To which I would reiterate, no, they deserve a sequel because they are dumb. I like the
Paul
exact
W. Anderson wouldn't have a career if that's why we
that
stopped.
These are dumb. Exactly.
Right.
So I have to hope. I wonder if the show airs internationally. I would hope if it's still as big as it is in Japan.
Yeah, I would hope that it does catch on and people kind of see the merits of it. I think, again, this is fun too, but I think the studio was misguided in just make it one movie. Because I can see the love for the franchise. Like, it would have benefited from being the Predator, Resident Evil 1 story, and then the Escape from New York, Resident Evil 2 story. And they're both fish out of water. Leon, first day on the job, what the hell? Like, they did some of that. Like, you're the captain now,
Yeah.
Some of that's good. Yeah.
But don't you think The White Whale is 4, an adaptation of 4? That's
Wow.
kind of what
Is that what we're
everybody's
working up to?
chasing and just going like, well, I have to prove that the brand is strong enough before they let me touch that, because that's sort of become this quote unquote, perfect object.
Yeah, it's kind of the holy grail, I guess, because it is, you look at the original games and they're like tank controls, like they don't really hold up. But Resident Evil 4, mechanically and visually, still, a lot of people said it doesn't need a remake. Like it still is great,
It's The Last of Us. Yeah.
They have the HD remaster that's, because the original one was on GameCube, it was 4:3, but just get an HD widescreen and you're good. It's excellent. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to touch that. 3, again, the game was going to be essentially like an add-on. Like it was not going to be a separate game, and it's a little bit shorter, just like the remake is shorter, and it could have been DLC. So those have always kind of had precarious status among fans. I have a soft spot for them, but generally 1 and 2, or specifically 2 and 4, I guess. It's like Star Trek movie rules. The odd numbers are except for 6. 6 is the exception.
And there's been some Revelations 1 and 2, Code Veronica. We said all
prequels. There's spin-offs and stuff, but I don't think those are. They're cool in their own way, but maybe Code Veronica is at the top of that list of like weird spin-offs.
Of doing an adaptation, even maybe. I would kind of like to see that.
But that has interesting like clone, multiple personality, dissociative identity disorder stuff going on, and
I don't know.
Wild.
I think you can do one literally from the point of view of the Nemesis, but now we're getting the big ideas.
Yeah.
Hit me with this. Give me your final. We're not jumping to final thoughts yet, and we still kind of want to talk a little bit of video games and where the franchise is kind of heading. But, dude, what is your last thing to say about Raccoon City? Because mine is truly just like, this. Surely they signed multiple movie contracts. This needed to be a straight to streamer. This needed to be a Netflix original movie. This needed to be whatever. If it was the prequel to that series and it literally ended with a post-credit scene that was the trailer for the series that we watched, Mike, they would have been hits. They both would have worked. I think going forward, make a direct-to-DVD, almost direct-to-streaming sequel to Raccoon City.
Yeah, I'm down with that. They have put the pieces in place. I think... Two things to say. Number one, because it's supposed to be like this John Carpenter thing, whatever, like the use of 90s tech, when we got a Palm Pilot sending instructions and like old cell phone playing Snake, like that was incredible to like go back in time. Like, so good use props. But my main question I have here is, who the fuck is Davis Raccoon? Because on the opening credits, there's a man named Davis Raccoon, and I refuse to believe that's a real man.
That's
it was like a producer on this.
After? Oh, okay.
He worked on the movie. Where do you find this guy?
Picks his projects based on if a raccoon is in it or not, or the word raccoon.
Well, I grew up in Jogia County, which, it means Raccoon County. So I always thought like, hey, we kind of live in Raccoon City.
Do you like the title?
Raccoon City? Or Welcome
to Raccoon City? Yeah.
I think it sets up exactly what Chief Irons is. Like, that man is what the entire energy of the movie should have been.
Donal Logue should have been pointing to the title page of the script and be like, you guys know we're in a movie called Welcome to Raccoon City, right? Like, bring it down or bring it up.
Yeah, they all should have taken notes from him, because Chris is pretty flat,
Yeah, Robbie
Claire's
Amell
all right, but she's very serious.
My bad CW shows. Yes. I believe her name is, I kid you not, I believe her name is Hannah Kamen Rider. Is that true? Is she a Kamen Rider?
I didn't know about that. Wow. Yeah. All right.
I think it might be.
But yeah, they landed some stuff that has never been put to film in the Resident Evil universe.
Yes.
And I give them credit for that. The truck driver with the burger, perfect, right? The Arclay Mansion, perfect. The police station, perfect. The police station's garage looks almost exactly like it does in the remake of the video game. How did you do that?
To break horror traditions, to have Donal Logue go off on his own, go to the basement, survive a horror thing, and go like, well, I better go back to the group and not die. You're just like, this is amazing.
But that's also so Resident Evil. Before we go to the last thing, it's like, I'm gonna make my escape, hit a dead end, maybe get a key item, and backtrack.
Okay, well,
you always backtrack.
I gotta go back because I left that file.
It opens
now. Okay.
Yeah, and we get Moonlit Sonata in both of these things that we watch too. So that's a good old reference. That was Lisa Trevor's favorite song.
Ah, and of course, it's such a more profound moment in the Netflix series. I'm never gonna get over you pointing out the puzzle solving. That really made that show for me now.
That's the most Resident Evil thing I've ever seen. It's the most naturalistic version of that.
They
I
do
guess.
an escape room essentially.
Yeah, that's all they are.
All right, well let's jump over. Let's talk the video games for just a little bit. Let's talk about the future of the Resident Evil franchise.
Yeah.
We're back. We're talking Resident Evil here on Normies Like Us, and we're going to be wrapping it up here in a little bit. But first, we kind of want to talk about the future of the franchise because we've been talking about it as an entertainment property, you know, in movies and TV. It is a video game. We should probably talk about it as a video game for a little bit.
Yeah, at least explicitly. One thing I forgot to mention during Welcome to Raccoon City was they use a lot of like sound effects and stuff from the games. Like there's this violin scrape jump scare that's in the 2 and 3 remakes that gets used fairly heavily in that. So just the fact that like you're using music and stuff from the games, sound effects from the games, like that's smart, you know? And I think even the Netflix one could have leaned into that a little bit more because it did feel like I was playing when some of those jump scares hit and I'm like, oh, I recognize that violin sting. It's like clearly whoever's making this has played this, which is the opposite of the Halo show, which
Well, yeah,
didn't.
and I love that you're pointing out just the sound effects. We've said it before about score. You know, we talked about it in the Sonic 2 episode where we were all very disappointed that they didn't use the video game score. Mike, when they make these adaptations, half the beauty of it is a portion of your job is done. You have the best music possible. That's kind of the point of video games. They're so tied to the soundtrack.
There's a moment in the Netflix one when Jade gets into a room where she is safe briefly, and I'm like, this is a safe room. Where's the typewriter? I didn't see the typewriter, but I'm like, you know, that they didn't pull the music. They could have pulled the music. It was like, it's right there. But the games, half the work's done for you.
If they adapt 4, do you think there will be a scene of him organizing a suitcase, trying to put like a full-size shotgun inside it?
Oh, the attaché, the whole thing. Yeah. Oh man, what are you
think a guy will
buying?
be like, what are you buying? I was literally about to say. You think they'll have the dealer? Yeah.
At the very least, I think he'll have a scene where like he has to, Ashley, if you find this letter, and he's like at a typewriter in this old, you know, European town. But speaking of old European towns, you know, the newest game has been Resident Evil Village, and it takes place in an old European town,
quote unquote village. We're about to get some DLC. That's the exciting news for that one, Mike. Now we've got Big Lady in this game, of course. Lady Dimitrescu or whatever it is, you know, is the big character.
Yeah, like Resident Evil 8-foot tall lady.
big honking mama.
Yeah.
Big and now we're gonna get to see her in a new light. Whereas it used to be first person, we're getting a third person update to that game now.
Yeah, that's right. So as I mentioned, I speedrun this game. You know, I really like Resident Evil Village. I think Resident Evil 7 is really strong. So this is continuing the Ethan Winters stuff. And I think it's pretty clear that this third person release is just a test to see if the RE engine, how it will hold up in third person for the inevitable 4 remake. Because that's third person. So this is kind of a stress test on the engine.
4 and 5 and that whole generation totally makes sense. How close do you think we are? Oh, I would love to see them adapt the Biohazard little. What did you guys say this main character's name is? Little
Ethan
franchise?
Winters.
Ethan Winters.
Yeah,
make those into movies.
Yeah, well, again, when the father of Jade's daughter, or whoever who's raising the daughter with her, whatever, when they're on the boat, I'm like, there's going to be an outbreak on the boat, and it's going to be just like Resident Evil 7, where like Ethan's on the boat. Like, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of Resident Evils that take place on a boat. It's like, we're going to get a boat outbreak? This is so Resident Evil. They didn't do it. But I thought he was going to be like the normal guy, like Ethan, who's thrust into this extreme scenario, right? And that's exactly who Ethan is, and I love that character. So not only that, we're going to be getting the entire game in third person, as you just said, but we're also getting a third person DLC that's about Rose, their daughter, who was almost sacrificed to the Miranda cult, was rescued, but has some weird genetic powers now, and we don't know what they are, but you're playing as Rose as an adult, third person, and she gets her own little campaign.
big staple of the Resident Evil series. A little girl grows up to have weird psychic powers in the future and becomes the main character.
Yeah, that's happens a lot. It happens a lot.
Yeah,
On
that's
film and
super
in game.
exciting, truly. Yeah, I would agree with you. It seems like that kind of just is, obviously because they just want to get the engine going, and it's easy enough to drop this in. It's called Winter something. I don't know. Again, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos. I've never played 8. I watched a whole playthrough. Joe likes third-person games more than first-person. I think in a horror game, I kind of have to do the first person because that's what these are going for. And even the VR-ness of Biohazard or whatever the earlier one was, right?
Yeah. I mean, 7, or Biohazard. Resident Evil, and they use the V and the I in the beginning of the L to make a 7.
Village Evil.
So what's 9 going to be called?
yeah, let's spell it out real quick.
Yeah,
Let's see. 1 and X. What could that be?
IX Indoor Amusement Park. That's for the Northeast Ohio locals only. They'll figure it out.
Indoor Amusement Park.
Excision. I don't know. So so that's gonna be the trilogy. The first person was a big change for them because they had done third person fixed camera, right? Tank controls for 1, 2, and 3. Then 4, 5, and 6 are third person action games, and then 7, 8, and 9, excluding 8 DLC, have been first person games. 7 and 8 have been, presumably 9 will also be a first person game. So each kind of segment of trilogies, spin-off games notwithstanding, are a different type of gameplay. And that's also because you can save money on your engine. Like, you make Resident Evil 1, now we know how to make better looking shit in it. Yeah, we'll save time,
Saving money as a creator. Let me ask you a question. I want your opinion on something, and I think our listeners would too, on maybe saving money as a consumer. Now, I don't buy a lot of Resident Evil games. I literally kind of only have one, just a Switch one. And I've been holding off on 4 because obviously I want to play the remaster. That'll be like maybe the next one I buy, right? But, you seem to be pushing that Village is worth playing, the 2 remakes worth playing, the 3 remakes worth playing. What is your opinion, Mike, on, as a PS5 owner, which you are, I am, Joe is now as well, to that upgraded, online system they have where if you pay I think it's $60 for the year or whatever now for the online services,
PS Plus,
you can go to PS Plus Game Catalog, which doesn't have the classic games, which would have Resident Evil 2, Code Veronica, all the old PS1 versions of them. But this game catalog has the remakes. You're paying for the ability to basically rent, almost like Xbox's Game Pass, which to me seems like a much better deal. But I'm very curious about your opinion on these rental game services.
Right. It's more like, monthly license or yearly licensing deals, right? You license the ability to access the game. But I played Resident Evil 7 on my PS5 through that program. I was able to play it for free. Yeah, so I played through Resident Evil 7. It came with all the DLCs and stuff. So that was a great...
You put it away, you never have to touch it again. But you're a speedrunner.
Yeah.
That's replayability.
7's too scary for me. It's actually 7's the scariest one as an adult to me.
It looks scary.
It's fucking scary, man. It's incredible. Everyone should play Biohazard 7. But yeah, I played that on my PS5. That's the only game, besides Demon's Souls that I've played on the damn thing. Right.
Wow.
So, but yeah, I think that's a great deal because they're both incredible. Like the 2 remake and the 3 remake, 3 is a little bit shorter, but if you can get them for nothing, $60 a year, Resident Evil 2 remake is a AAA game experience, and it's the best way to experience the second game. Like if you're younger, right? If you didn't grow up with it, you don't have the nostalgia, you're gonna be pissed off by the tank controls. I'll be like, there's nothing like it, But for a modern gamer, that's like they did with the gameplay remakes what we wish just someone could do with like a film treatment of it. Just treat the source material with love and care, and then highlight the best of it, polish up some of the rough spots, and just do it, And that's what the 2 and 3 remakes are. Even if there are some criticism for the 3 remake, I think tonally, like that's the best and most fun Resident Evil universe to me is the Resident Evil 3 remake. Tone, bar none. Carlos and Jill have the best chemistry. Jill's always been my favorite character, and I did like
Yeah, I
Carlos.
get that.
I did a Carlos cosplay for Halloween one year, like
my
when I was a
God.
kid. Yeah, but Jill's always been my favorite because 3 was the first one I beat, so maybe I'm biased. But I think that's a
I'm
great
a
way to
5
experience
guy.
those.
I always liked Chris. Now,
5
just
is
to,
very underrated as a co-op game. It's a very fun
yeah,
co-op
and that's
game.
what I like about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but I think to your answer to my long question,
Yeah,
I
it's
absolutely
worth it.
loved, and I guess I would also just say we're from the blockbuster generation. You know, to
Mhm.
me, there's nothing wrong with trying a game out and being like, "Oh, this fucking sucked." There isn't just 3 Resident Evil games on here. I can play Stray, God of War, whatever all the other new blah 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 rentals would be.
It's no different than, Netflix and Disney, and just you pay for a year up front, which is honestly cheaper. It's cheaper than
Yeah.
Netflix to do that, annually. So,
I am a physical king, though, Mike, and I do hate being a streaming boy.
yeah,
It
I
drives me
know.
absolutely bonkers that we don't own anything in this dystopian future we're in.
I think about all the Blu-rays that I used to own, like Resident Evil
Ugh,
Regeneration. Yeah, I bought that at Amoeba. Paid full price for that
Amazing.
Blu-ray, and
Oh
now
my
I don't have it.
God.
How am I going to watch Regeneration, right? I guess I'll have to
oh
stream it.
no.
But yeah, I am a physical media boy, but sometimes the convenience, you can't beat it. And if you're on the fence and you happen to have that service, check them out because they're incredible.
Yes.
And Resident Evil 2 Remake is really scary too. It's probably
Wow,
like
that kind of
the second
sells me.
scariest. 3 Remake
I'm
is not as
still-
scary because you can dodge. Just like the original 3, you had a dodge button. So you have a more complete offensive move set in both versions of 3. They're both more action heavy and 2's more horror. But I like that even in the remake, they're like, yeah, we nailed the horror version of 2, but we need to make it like the original 3, which was slightly more action heavy, right? It's like they're so accurate with it. It's incredible. So anyway, play those if you
I
can.
am still, of course, stuck on Elden Ring and may
Mhm.
never, clear this thing, unfortunately.
That can
So
be
that's
scary,
always going to
too.
be my long play game. But if this is dip inable, if I could do some short spurts, I might pop in a Resident Evil here pretty soon.
Well, the great thing about Resident Evil games, like the remake and in general, like you can beat them in under 10 hours, even if you're taking your time.
That is cool. Yep,
Resident Evil
I do
Village
like
is
that.
under 10 hours in a first playthrough, but you replay them, right?
The frustration that I've been stuck on Elden Ring for months, the idea that on one Saturday I could sit down and beat all of a Resident Evil remake might be the reason that I kind of cut that in line real quick. You're totally right.
Yeah, like and once you get used to it, like you can, not even being a speedrunner, just being like a mediocre, like average player, you could beat the Resident Evil 2 remake in 2.5 to 4 hours. Like
my
in one
God.
afternoon, you could just beat it. Like once you know what you're doing and you have like, you get upgraded weapons, like you can New Game Plus it, so you have all the shit, and you can just go in there and just run through and have a good time, like immersed in the world. So the replay value, and they're short, but that doesn't mean they're lacking, depth or enjoyability. It doesn't need to be a 200-hour Elden Ring.
No. When I played 4, it was on my 360 and it was some sort of DLC loaded, by Game of the Year version. And I believe my starting weapon, anachronistically was the Magnum, which was so overpowered. But even then, it's just like, it did not detract. Like, it was the delight of the game was still the mechanics and everything else. So
You're
no,
still solving the
wouldn't stop me
puzzles.
at all. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I guess if the question is entry points, right?
Yeah.
There's 2, maybe 3, but 2 that I would consider. Like if you want to experience the best version of, let's say, classic PlayStation 1 era Resident Evil, right? If you want to know what Resident Evil survival horror with tank controls and pre-rendered backgrounds, the best version is the remake for the GameCube. It's introduced Lisa Trevor, as I said. It has some new gameplay changes. They add a variant zombie that moves faster, that like you have to, if you kill a zombie and you don't burn the corpse, there's a chance that it could turn into a crazier zombie later. And it'll like sprint after you, right? But so you have to make a choice. Do I burn this one or leave it? I can't burn all of them because the game doesn't give you enough shit. So it's remixed enough, but it's got the classic boss fight with a giant spider and a giant snake, and it's still pre-rendered backgrounds, but the GameCube was good enough that since backgrounds are pre-rendered, it could focus on the character models, and the character models look super realistic too. So it's the most realistic kind of tank controls, and there's great HD versions on PC and console. So for tank control, Resident Evil, play that. And I guess Resident Evil 2 remake for a modern stylized. And if you think that's a little too spooky, play 3 remake. It's a little campier, but they're kind of the same thing. Yeah.
Might start with 3 then.
It's so good, and it's short. I can beat it in 45 minutes.
Oh my God.
Less than 45, asterisk.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun little romp. It's a little linear, but if you're playing through it 10 times. It's fun. You get a rocket launcher at some point with infinite ammo.
Of course. That's, again, a staple of the series. Yeah, rolling in. I guess let's roll into some final thoughts here. It's like, what a weird paradox or fucking Bermuda Triangle this series is in, Mike, that it's like, here I am watching a show that, again, is it the best thing ever? No, it's got the name Resident Evil on it, and I'm happy watching it.
Couple of monsters that I recognize. It's about it.
Maybe. Here's a movie where I'm going and at parts laughing my ass off, cheering, feeling while I'm watching it like, ooh, this is like a Carpenter movie. Damn, I'm really vibing with this. And then I kind of look around and I see like 2 people in the audience, and it's like opening weekend. And you're just like, okay, yeah. And then there's all these amazing games that it seems like Capcom literally is like, don't make me do this. Don't make me release this game. Oh, fine. All right. We did it. Here it is. Here's a remake of this game. And then it's like, it breaks all the records on the planet. Capcom's like, oh, you're going to make me do this again. It's like,
I'm not
why
sure
are you
if
being so combative with me?
2 remake might have won Game of the Year. It was definitely nominated, but you know what I mean? It's like,
I believe it's their highest grossing video game of all time now, Mike.
Because it hit the sweet spot of people who are nostalgic for the original and people who are young enough to know its prestige but never played it. Now they can move modern graphics.
But you with your siblings, your cousin, you know, I'm watching you guys play Resident Evil. Me and my brother are peeking through the window as Mega Man fans going like, Capcom, don't you see? Like you're treating them so well. Like, don't you realize the money you could be making from us? And they're like, fine, on the Switch, we'll release one of the video games that you have to buy twice. And you're like, no.
I'm not sure who hates their fans more, Capcom with Mega Man or Nintendo with F-Zero. Yes. Or Star Fox. Both of them are pariahs.
Or Metroid, you could have said, but now they broke.
Now we're okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Capcom is one of the few developers that is still more or less
I don't understand the attitude.
Good.
I don't get it, Mike.
Yeah, well, it's like there's From Software and there's Capcom. And they're the 2 companies that seem content to release a complete game for full price. If it's not complete, Resident Evil 3 Remake, it's $40. You know what I mean? Like they released it cheaper than Resident Evil 2 Remake because they knew it was shorter. So they're not screwing you over. Resident Evil Village,
really
good to go.
Wasn't a moment there where they're like, we think we're out of ideas. And it seemed like almost every fan on the planet was like, what do you mean? You own, like Monster Hunter, Mega Man, Resident Evil, like Beautiful Joe. You list them off and they're like, you're right. We should do something with this. Thank you, fans. And it almost seemed like we had to will these games into existence. And the continued success of them, I think, confounds entertainment companies because they want that, number 2 top box office to translate to people coming to Raccoon City. I don't understand why it doesn't either. And it's just this big uphill battle, Mike, that I there's no winners in, and I want people to keep testing the battleground, but don't expect to have a victory. That would be my warning to these people going forward.
Well, there's definitely winters in it. Or you said winners? All right, I was thinking of Rose and Ethan. So sorry, it's a 2 minds thing, right? So Capcom clearly hears its fans, and what do they proceed to do? Give them exactly what they want, right? You want to remake? Fine, we'll make it pretty much the same. And just dress it up, right? And then with movie studios or TV studios, it's like, what do you want? Resident Evil. All right, well, here's Riverdale.
Well, you guys want
But
Resident Evil, but we also
we
have
want to hit
entertain
these
mom,
demographics. Mom,
exactly.
dad, the whole
And it's like,
family. Right.
well, yes, but
That's
yeah,
not
I
who
see what you're
likes
saying.
Resident Evil. Right.
No.
Make it for them. So that's the thing. I'll quote Lance Reddick one more time.
Please do.
So, look, we can replace the word life at the start of this with franchises, let's say. But life is just a bunch of accidents and tragedies. Nobody's really okay. We're all just doing our best in a world where it's way too easy to do your worst. Lance fucking Reddick.
When we don't have Jacob on to do quizzes, we do Mike's quote corner.
But it's only Lance Reddick.
But it's only Lance Reddick quotes.
Yeah. But it's like, it's just a bunch of accidents and tragedies. That's how these franchises being brought into live action feels sometimes. We've had Death Note, we've had Cowboy Bebop, which I liked, but the fans did not. Resident Evil, clearly the lowest rated show. So at some point, just wake up. Even since Paul W.S. Anderson, the closest thing was Welcome to Raccoon City with giving the fans what they want, and even that was still Bizarro World. Just do the thing, right? Just do the thing.
Yeah,
that's all it takes.
It's crazy.
You'll make money hand over fist.
I know. When you list off like Cowboy Bebop, and we're going to talk about the One Piece adaptation, we're probably going to talk about Yu Yu Hakusho, all these other things Netflix are doing. It is interesting that we put Resident Evil in the line with those anime adaptations, because I think it is truly, it's just an adaptation of source material thing. You'd almost put The Witcher in there too if they weren't like, well, but it's kind of good. And if it wasn't kind of good, you'd be like, yeah, and that's another thing that they just like fucked up adapting. That's kind of Netflix's MO, is fuck shit up while you're adapting it.
Yeah, it's like you lean on the algorithm too much. At least The Witcher, it is like, that's kind of what we want. Like he fights monsters and it's gritty and he says fuck.
There were enough people there defending the source material. Henry Cavill standing up being like, no, this is not in the book. We will be saying, X, Y, and Z instead. And Resident Evil, there is, I think for this, no one standing there. And because they didn't have to, because they're making something so different, but going like, well, in the true spirit of the Biohazard games or Resident Evil, we have to. Yeah. And there's just none of that. There's none of it.
I guess the most charitable thing to say about it, as someone who enjoyed it more than most, the Resident Evil franchise has spanned decades, right? It has made lasting impressions, and it has constantly changed throughout that time, and it's kind of been all over the place tonally, right? Yeah. And so they gave us a show that spans decades, and is kind of all over the place tonally. So it's the most Resident Evil thing that's ever been made, because you can't really pinpoint what it is, who is it for at any given time. It's for someone different depending on when you meet it in the timeline, just like the Resident Evil franchise itself is. So that's where I'm at.
I think that's a great take, dude. We're not going to change any minds with this podcast. That's what I've realized. Even our friends that we've recommended it to have been like, no, that looks absolutely stupid. And I'm like, that's fair to say. My dad will not watch this. And I'm like, fine. That's fine. But I don't know. I'm glad we gave it its due. If I had completely skipped over this, that wouldn't be fun. I got something out of this.
No, and as a lifelong Resident Evil fan, like I've read the books. There's novelizations of the games and stuff. I read all those in school too, and they did book reports on them. Like I had a toy
if you're
tyrant. I love it. So I'm gonna watch it. Maybe I do have a cousin, friend of the show. I won't dox, but he just recently had twin girls, so maybe the show will appeal to him as a Resident Evil fan. Me and him beat Resident Evil 6 together co-op.
Wow.
Back when I was visiting.
One day. Maybe he'll watch him with his
made for his children.
Billy.
Yeah, they're named Jade and Billy. Yeah. They love Dua Lipa. That's all they listen to.
Remember, he's their father. They have different mothers.
Wesker, yeah. Right. So, shout outs to Wesker,
Shout outs to Wesker. I don't know. Do you have any other final thoughts on this thing? Again, what's the future of Resident Evil? It kind of feels like we were really saturated with it. And if you're denying this, I don't know what else you could ask for. And I don't know what kind of future it deserves then.
If you're really a fan of it, at least the games are healthy. You've never been more spoiled.
Yeah.
7 is incredible. 8 is incredible. 2 and 3 remake are incredible.
Yes.
You're completely spoiled right now. Capcom continues to hit out of the park, and their brilliance of new game, remake to buy us time, new game. You know what I mean? Remake to buy us time. Like, that's brilliant. And they're making
Mike,
money hand over fist.
Let's look at a different game system. I'm a diehard Pokemon fan.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have gotten in this weird system where they go, we'll remake a classic and release the new one. And the new ones are always lukewarm reviews. And the remakes, people are always like, why did you make it look like this? I hate it. And you're like, okay, so they're losing on both fronts. And there's not a Detective Pikachu 2. Like, I can't really talk about
The
what
most
the reception
successful video
was to
game
the
movie of all time.
Yeah, I said it would be most successful movie ever created.
Ever, yeah. Avatar went back into theaters to do that.
Yeah.
I guess it's weird because you can't do it. One mind is do the Resident Evil 1 movie version. Predator style, meets Night of the Living Dead. Then do your TV show that's weird and shit. Then do the 2 remake, and then do the second season of the TV show that's weird and shit.
I like this.
Just do the alternate. Yeah, just do that.
That seems like a good system to me.
And all of the TV shows are just like this one, 20 years after the events of the 90s. Like you set them in the 90s.
Creating new canon, which they're allowed to do.
Yeah.
They're not messing with whatever other fans would be mad about. They're just doing their own thing.
So in the movie theater, you get the classic canon, classic characters with berets. Thank you. And then on TV, you do whatever you want. That's like, this happens in the future later. Yeah. I want Sherry Birkin.
Right.
She's great as a grown-up. Anyway, get out of here.
A true Resident Evil fan has spoken. That is what Mike wants.
Yes.
We want to know what you want. So get up to your typewriter, type
Season
in
2, Netflix,
Normies
Resident Evil.
Underscore us on all social media. And like Mike just said, send these letters to Netflix and tell them I'm, the Billie Eilish fan campaign. Get these TikTokers involved to bring this show back.
I can't believe they cast her. It's incredible. Yeah.
If she came out, I'm taking a break before my next album to star in the Resident Evil Netflix TV series. People would be like, what are you talking about?
They recast adult Billy with Billie Eilish.
I'm in season 2. I will be playing the character Billy. I'm like, great. I'm watching this.
Yep, I'm in.
So tell us all that, Normies.
Because as we find out, Billie Eilish in the Resident Evil movie is the bad guy. Thank you.
That's right. She's a bad guy.
Yep. Umbrella Academy reference, Luther. It's all tied together, man. The Umbrella conspiracy is getting bigger.
The Umbrella conspiracy, yes. We're opening and shutting right here.
Yeah.
on Normies Like Us with your hosts. This has been the C Virus, Colin.
I'm Mike Wesker now. Hey.
Oh my God! And your clone, Michael Wesker.
Mikey. He's a party dude.
Mikey, how are you, man?
Partying. All right. Hey, have a good one,
All
guys.
right. See you, Normies.
Bye.